Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're taking a look at Arceus Inteleon, looking forward to the Lost Origin, except this is going to be Arceus Inteleon featuring a couple new cards of course, and that's going to be the new Lake Acuity card that helps your Pokemon take less damage, as well as the new Radiant Gardevoir that also helps your Pokemon take less damage. So the idea here is that you're going to be able to make your Arceus V-Stars and even Arceus Vs super tanky so they can't be like on the Arceus V boss knocked out easily, because that kind of destroys your strategy, and your Arceus V-Stars can't be one-up KO'd easily. Really cool idea. And this is kind of like a bare bones list. There's not many texts in here. Some cards you can include is like Dunsparce or Manphy. If Rabichar Urshifu gets popular again, which is something that could happen because of Drapion V kind of just bopping Mew for 0 energy. It's basic. And that's also the reason why we're kind of not running Path, because we're kind of expecting Mew to be not as big. But of course, this deck still does have the capabilities of beating Mew, which is something that your deck is probably always going to need. As long as Mew's in format, is the capability of beating Mew. So let's just go ahead and start and look at the list. Starting off with 3 Arceus V-Star and 4 Arceus V, which is pretty standard for Arceus Inteleon. Shouldn't have to explain this too much. You want to have the maximum amount of your attackers that you need. With Ordinary Rod, you'll be able to put these guys back in if you really need more of the Arceuses to attack with. So yeah, 4 Arceus V and 3 Arceus V-Star. Have the nice Alt-Art V. This card looks super good. Anyways, Tree Nova super powerful. Starworth also super powerful. If you don't know what this card does by now, you've kind of been living under the rock, I guess, because this card is just absolutely huge in standard format right now. But some people consider it to be the best deck in format, and it only gets a little bit better with some of these new inclusions. But of course, Arceus Inteleon doesn't have to have the Inteleon, so we're having a 4 Sobble and 4 Drizzile, of course, as well as 2 Inteleon, 2 of the Shady Dealings Inteleon. And this is just like the best line I found on Arceus Inteleon. You want to be able to have the most consistent turn 1, so you want the 4 Sobble for that. And you also want to be able to have the most consistent turn 2, so 4 Drizzile is good for that as well. You don't have as much like crazy draw like Palkia has Irida that can easily search out some of your Drizzile pieces, so you don't need as many Drizziles in Palkia, but in Arceus you're going to need them because you don't have a way to directly search them out if you need them. So the 4-4 and 2, no quick shooting, just because we're just trying to be the most consistent Arceus deck we can almost possibly be. And, the quick shooting, we're not really a deck that tries to play 2 1 knockouts. And quick shooting is kind of a 1 knockout kind of card. But if you want to play it, you can cut another card. You can cut a second Shady and Inteleon for it if you really want it. I don't really think it's necessary. Then the first new card, which is going to be Radiant Gardevoir, that has the ability Devotion Veil, that says all of your Pokemon in play take 20 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon V's attacks. And V Pokemon are the Pokemon that you're largely worrying about. Any single price Pokemon or single price strategy usually just gets destroyed by Sharon's Care. So Radiant Gardevoir, I should say, is really good in those other matchups. It's basically useless in Palkia because it basically just benches and then cancels itself out. But it's bad because if your opponent paths, then it doesn't cancel itself out anymore and is 20 more damage for the Palkia's attack. So it's not really good in Palkia, but it's good versus pretty much everything else. I feel like just a way to make your Arceus more tanky versus Ice Rider, versus Mew especially. It's just really good. Now, something to know, it does cost its attack for Psychic Double Colorless does 70 damage and 20 more for each energy type your opponent's active. Now, if there's any Psychic weak deck or just that likes to load energy on, or just Psychic weak deck in general, you're going to play Psychic Energy in here and actually attack with Psychic because you have double turbo energy, which is something that's kind of cool. If you have double turbo and say your opponent has like 2 energy or 3 energy on. If they have 3 energy on, without the double turbo math already, you're hitting 130. And then if you can tap for the double turbo, that's 110. And then choice spell 140. So you can do 280. So if you're against a Psychic Weak V-Star that does at 280 HP, you can actually knock it out if you have a Psychic Energy for the Radiant Gardevoir to attack, which is kind of cool. And you also have to play Choice Spell because we don't play Choice Spell. So if that is actually a tech option, is a Psychic Energy and Choice Spell if you want that. Other than that, it's really just here for the ability, and it's really good for making your Arceus V and V-Star tanky. Moving on to the supporters, we have 2 Sharon's Care, which is pretty standard for Arceus Inteleon decks. 2 Marnie, which is all pretty standard, I think. Basically, the kind of idea is that early game you want to disrupt them with Marnie or go in aggressive with Boss. And then late game to mid game, you just want to spam Sharon's care to deny prize cards. And that's kind of the reason why Arceus Inteleon has stayed on top for so long, is that it's really good at what it does, and that is denying prize cards and doing exactly what it wants to do every turn, because you have Drizzile, you have Starworth. And of course, we need to play Boss. We have 2 Boss. And then we have a couple one of supporters, starting off with 1 Research, just because Research is a really good draw. If you just need a little extra boost, 2 more cards than 5 can be a big difference sometimes. 1 copy of Melanie, in case you miss attachment turn 1, you can Melanie in combination with Starbirth to set up the Melanie. And it's really just good for that, but also just powering up your Arceus VSTARs, just in the mid game can be also nice. We play a couple other ones. 1 copy of new supporter, which is called Thornton. This is choose a basic Pokemon in your discard pile and switch it with one of your basic Pokemon to play, and then all attached cards, turns in play, special conditions, and other effects remain on the new Pokemon. Which means that if you have to turn 1, keep calling, get out a couple Zobble, and you only have 1 Arceus V, and your opponent Boss knocks it out, that's fine. You still have a Zobble and play with an energy on it. So you can do is you can just Drizzile for Thornton, the Zobble into the Arceus V. The energy stays on because that's what Thornton says, is that the energy stays on when you switch the Pokemon. So now your Arceus has energy on it, and you just have to V-Star and Starbirth whatever you want, and you're up and going again. All that really cost you was 1 extra prize card that a Sob will usually give up if they knock that out instead of an Arceus V on their second turn. So it's really good for that. It's also really good for getting back a Radiant Gardevoir if that was knocked out. We do have an Ordinary Rod for that as well, but that's just a little bit option. You can turn a Sobble into a Radiant Gardevoir or something. You can turn an extra Arceus V into like a single prizer if you don't need it on the board anymore. There's just a lot of ways that you can do things with Thornton. Pretty cool card. And the other support is, of course, Roxanne. One of the other of Arceus Inteleon's most powerful tools is the ability to disrupt super well. You can attack with Inteleon Shady Dings fairly easily because your Arceus V-Star, of course, powers up your Arceus V, so then you're left to have your turn attachments open to using on an Inteleon to set that up, so you can set up some maximum efficiency Roxanne plays. Roxanne's just a really good card for making comebacks. Going into items for Quick Ball and for Level Ball, which is, I'm trying to want to be pretty consistent with this list, and 4 Quick Ball and 4 Level Ball will help us do exactly that. And then 2 Ultra Ball, because this can find basic Pokemon as well as evolution Pokemon. So it can find Arceus V on your first turn if you need it. You can also find an Arceus V-Star on your second turn if you need it. 2 copies of Scoop Up Nets, so we can scoop up our Inteleons once we've used them, and rebench the Sobble so you can just keep the flow of trainers going. Then we have some one-of items as well. 1 Evolution Incense, which is something I would honestly want to bump up to 2. Maybe you could cut energy. Maybe if you find one of these supporters you don't need, like maybe the Thornton, I don't know. Just an example, you can cut it for a second Evo Incense. It's something I definitely want. I find myself using Evo Incense every game. But that's just because I have Evo Incense. And if I didn't have Evo Incense, I'd probably be finding some way to use Ultra Ball instead of Evo Incense. So it's not the end of the world if you do prize Evolution Incense. When you do need it, you can maybe you have the resources in hand to just use an Ultra Ball instead. But if you don't, having that second Evo Incense might be nice. 1 copy of Palpad, which is another something that you might want to bump up to 2, just to go extremely defensive with the Sharon's Care. Try and use as many of those as possible. It also lets you Roxanne multiple times, Thornton multiple times, Melanie multiple times, Boss multiple times. Palpad's just a really strong card in Inteleon deck, so running one of them is going to be crucial. Then 1 copy of Ordinary Rod. This can recycle our energy, so we can Trinity Nova them back onto our board. It can recycle our Pokemon like a Radiant Gardevoir. If we happen to prize 2 V-Stars or something, and we can recycle that other V-Star, we actually do have access to. Ordinary Rod has a lot of really good uses. And then we have 2 copies of Big Charm, which is kind of the standard Arceus Inteleon tool at this point. But now, in addition to the Big Charm, you also get to add the Radiant Gardevoir reduction damage and the Lake Acuity reduction damage, which I will talk about right now, which is Stadium. We're playing 4 of it. That says all Pokemon in play that have water or fighting energy attached take 20 less damage. Both yours and your opponent. So it works for your opponent's side too, which is kind of important to note. Now, Arceus does 180 damage usually with the double turbo energy, sometimes 200 if you have all 3 basic energy or no double turbo energy attached. So reducing that 180 to 160 usually won't matter if your opponent happens to have any water energy. The only time that the 180 I think actually matters is Mew, and Mew does not play water or fighting energy, so it's fine. But other than that, 160 still two shots everything, and that's what you're trying to do. Be a defensive deck that just two shots things. So if your opponent happens to have water energy in their deck, and they can take advantage of Lake Acuity, it's usually fine. We don't have any choice spells. Like once again, we're not an Arceus Inteleon on the list that's trying to reach for one in knockouts. So if Lake Acuity happens to benefit our opponent as well, it's no big deal. But also, Path kind of destroys us because not only does Path bump the Lake Acuity, but it also turns out the Radiant Gardevoir. So if your opponent plays a Path down when you have Radiant Gardevoir out and Lake Acuity in play, that essentially just makes their attacks do 40 more damage. And 40 is a lot of damage. So we want to be able to have the response to that on our following turn. The only kind of bad thing I think about Lake Acuity is the fact that it's not really... it's a kind of a reactive card. It's not a reactive card. It's a proactive card that kind of forces your opponent to play into it. And if they don't play into it, it pays off. But if they do and they don't bump the Lake Acuity, then you're going to be having a good time. But yeah, so in the combination of the Big Charm, the Radiant Gardevoir, and the Lake Acuity, you can have your Arceus VSTAR have effectively 350 HP, which for a 2-prizer is nuts. I'm pretty sure 240 was the maximum HP on a 2-price GX for a long time. That is 110 hit points more than the maximum HP of a GX. That was worth 2 prices as well. That is nuts. That's crazy. V-Stars are really, really good. And having all these extra tanking options for Arceus to make sure that your Arceus V doesn't get knocked out or boss knocked out, make sure your Arceus V-Star doesn't just get one it KO'd is really, really nice. Going in energy, 2 copies of double turbo energy, so we can use that Arceus V-Star's attack on turn 2 consistently. We don't have to rely on melting or anything. We can just start with the double turbo energy. Usually after turn 1, you can usually get by without a double turbo energy, so that's why we only have 2. It can be useful to have a second one, but we only really usually need 1. 2 copies of capture energy, so we can find our Arceus V turn 1 consistently. Once again, Arceus V-Star really thrives when it's able to get that consistent turn 1 setup and capture energy. Not only does it get a basic out, but it also applies that energy as well. Multiple use card, and then kind of a standard energy count for Arceus Inteleon decks right now, at least, is 7 water energy, and that's exactly what we're running. 7 water energy. And yeah, that's me the list. I put it a little bit too far here. There we go. And yeah, it's going to be the list for the Arceus Inteleon deck with Radiant Gardevoir and Lake Acuity. Super, super strong deck. There's a couple tech options you can add if Urshifu becomes really popular. You can add Manaphy and Dunsparce. You can obviously increase or decrease the counts of cards. Already mentioned the Palpatine and Evolution Incense. But yeah, if you guys liked it, don't forget to leave a like. If you guys want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. I do videos like this all the time. I'm really excited to see what the new Scarlet and Violet mechanic is. I will probably be doing a video on that tomorrow after I come home from school, assuming that Scarlet and Violet mechanic is announced. I'm really excited to see how the Pokemon Company is going to translate the Terra style Pokemon into TCG, because there's no exact translation. I'm hoping to do something in a combination of like Delta Species and Level X. That'll be awesome. Level X's are really, really cool. And I hope they bring something like the Level X's or the breaks back in some way. But yeah, let's do it for a video, guys. If you guys liked it, don't forget to leave a like. I'll see you guys in the next one.